incredibly challenging situation. We live in a shared ownership housing association flat, and we were told in 2017 by the housing association that we didn't have any cladding on our building. So I thought no more of it. I had a baby in December, and we decided that we were going to move this year. And just before the pandemic, I was chatting to one of my neighbours who's part of our residents association, and she told me she was pretty sure that we did have cladding, and the residents association had been asking for the survey for about a year. And it was at that point that I sort of fell down a rabbit hole.
Yeah.
It turns out that a building does have flammable material, but we've never been formally notified. We know this because the building manual confirms that we have 3 types of potentially flammable material, including HPL. Despite this, the only letters the Housing Association has sent us is to say, please do not have fairy lights or barbecues on your balcony due to cladding concerns. The only other letter we've had to confirm it is that if they do not secure the government grant, they will be issuing us a Section 20 notice for the works. So we've never actually had the cladding confirmed by the Housing Association, but we have had it confirmed that we'll be paying for it when they eventually notify us.
And what are we talking about, Victoria? Do we know?
We have absolutely no idea. I mean,
and you can't even think of selling until this is sorted.
No, so all we know is that we can't sell, we can't move, we don't know how safe our home is. I mean, I've had to call out the fire brigade and get our own independent fire inspectors to just come and have a look, just to tell me that it's safe enough to bring my baby home. I mean, I moved into my mum's for 5 months because we just didn't feel safe enough. And those letters arrived during the pandemic where people were locked in their homes all day, on top of the fact that we've also got all of these problems with the Housing Association, like our communal boiler didn't work. So we're in the middle of a pandemic. We get a letter to say your building might be flammable, so don't have fairy lights. And also the hot water doesn't work, so no one can wash their hands. So we still don't know. I put my child to bed at night not knowing whether there's just a tiny little bit of cladding and it's relatively safe, or whether the building is, a massive fire hazard.
And forgive me if you've already told me this, but I am genuinely reeling from your story and from Peter's. But what is the best case scenario on getting what needs to be done?
Well, it's really challenging for us.
You need the EWS1.
So they've done that after a lot of lobbying by the Residents Association, and me and my neighbours are involved in a housing association-wide action group with lots of members, and we've realised that this is a problem affecting dozens of buildings, and the policies that Housing Association are telling us related to the cladding are just changing building to building. Yeah. So we've written to journalists and broadcasters and radio stations and the Deputy Mayor of London and MPs and regulators, and people just don't know what to do. And our situation is so much more complicated because we don't know how unsafe our building is. So we have no concept of whether it's safe to live here or how much the cost could be.
How are you holding it together? I'm sorry if that's a slightly silly question.
Really badly, to be honest.
I mean,
I'm on maternity leave.
Yeah.
It's the middle of a pandemic, so it wasn't the best maternity leave anyway.
For sure.
And, we flip. I think not knowing is the worst thing for us, because on a good day, we can convince ourselves that actually our building's probably pretty safe, that there's only a little bit, it would have been fixed by now if it was really dangerous. Yeah. And then on a bad day, we think, we've had so many problems with our housing association, right down to things like the boiler. So why would they be doing a good job when it comes to the cladding? And so actually our building could be incredibly unsafe. It's just that we've not been shouting loud enough for it to be rectified. And just not knowing how much we're going to be made to pay is terrifying.
No, but that's real, as I keep saying, and I'm feeling it's a little bit inadequate now as a description. That's real sort of tea time of the soul stuff in the middle of the night, where we've all kind of wrestled with potential problems. I can't imagine anyone's ever thought that this might be on the horizon.